So, full disclosure, I already sat down to record this earlier today, but I had to re-record it now that my Brother Sensitive Randall Thor t-shirt has arrived that I ordered from the merch shop over at the EDN channel. I'll link them down below. Y'all can let me know in the comments if I, as the whitest of white girls, am even allowed to say the full name of that channel without being cringe, but either way, they are the only reactors that I like to watch for Wheel of Time. I'm normally not even a huge fan of reaction videos, which is why I'm not doing like a full-on reaction myself. I'm just kind of recapping it. I don't know if that makes me hypocritical, but especially for shows that I like, Wheel of Time is so near and dear to my heart that in spite of everything, I am still admittedly trying my damnedest to enjoy the hell out of this TV show for as long as we get it. I really hope that they're able to make it all the way to the end, but if you do want to watch some really awesome, wholesome, great reaction videos, definitely go check out their channel and their merch shop. I'm loving the Bishonen anime rand, and now that I'm rocking my Bishonen anime rand t-shirt, I'm ready to get into the season finale of season 2 of Amazon's The Wheel of Time. So let's get into it. I'm just going to preface this first by saying that the structure of this video is going to be a little bit different from the other ones that I've done so far. Instead of like a scene-by-scene recap and breakdown where I try to go in order and give Easter eggs, there's not really a lot of Easter eggs in terms of hidden things in this episode that I noticed. Instead of trying to go in order, I'm more just going to group things in this episode into things I like and things that I didn't like. First of all, I'm just gonna preface this by being honest, by saying that overall, I was hoping that, especially for the season finale, they were really going to course correct and give us a more book accurate finale, which they did in many ways. A lot of the story beats and like things that needed to happen happened, but they also really subverted a lot of reader expectations, i.e. Turok, and to me just fell a little bit short in others, like with the final face-off against Ishamael, which I will get into more, but I will be honest and say that a lot of the things that I didn't like about this episode just stem primarily from my expectations going into it as a book reader. I admittedly was really hype going into this episode. I had a lot of expectations going into this episode, a lot of things that I was hoping and wanting to see, and some of those expectations were met, and some of them were subverted, and some of that I liked, and some of that I didn't like. For the things that I liked, loved Lanfear just being able to open a waygate with a literal flick of her wrist and just yeet Moraine and Lan on out of there by huff-puffing them like the big bad wolf that she is. I loved Matt's improvised quarterstaff slash Ashandarai moment and how he was able to somewhat subvert expectations with that and show some cleverness. The charge of the White Cloak Brigade, that's how you do it, Rings of Power. Egwene was just absolutely winning. All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Literally killing it. I'm not even mad that at first she was hesitant to just start attacking, but when she saw it was the White Cloaks that she was supposed to attack, she was totally willing to just go off on some White Cloaks. I also loved Moraine's epic channeling that we saw in this episode. It was a nice parallel to her channeling that we saw in the opening of season 1, where instead of lightning and air, it was a lot of fire. And I also just have to say it's a little bit amusing to me to just think about the contrast between her channeling versus Lanfear, where Lanfear is very short, sweet, to the point, efficient, minimum effort needed, and Moraine is just out here on the beach getting down with her bad self, doing the most and being extra, but you know, she's literally thought that she was stilled this entire season, and now she has her power back, so I can't really blame her for wanting to be over here against the Shan-chan doing the most. She's feeling her oats. Let her feel her oats. Have to shout out Lan's epic arrow catch when he snatched the arrow out of midair. I had kind of predicted in the back of my mind conversation at the beginning of the season when she had said that they were never equals, that in the back of her mind she's only able to say that because in some ways she has always thought he was her better. And it's a nice little insight and just nod to, I think, the events of New Spring, where Moraine didn't even really know Lan or who he was or his background, but just from the little that she saw of him and the way that he acted and the way that he comported himself and the way others held him in such high regard, she just knew instantly, like, hey, I'm on this mission of utmost importance. I have to find the Dragon Reborn and protect him, and this is the guy that I need as my number one. I did like the big alleyway fight between the Shan-chan and then like Perrin and Ingtar and the Shinarans alongside the Aiel. I think that was an example of some really good fight choreography. I loved Matt's scene where he blows his horn and summons all of the heroes of the horn, and we not only get a bonus Uno joining the pack, but I know that was Birgitta we saw there. I'll have to go back and try to pause it and like see what the X-ray says or what the credits say to confirm that it's Birgitta. I'll get into it more in the dislikes. Disappointed that we didn't at least get a name drop for Birgitta in this episode, because we do see some of them are named, like Archer Hawkwing, Amaseru. I can't remember what her name is in the show, but it's supposed to be a nod to the Japanese sun goddess Amaterasu. But yeah, I know that's Birgitta there. I did predict from seeing the teaser for this episode and just the shot of Elaine and Rand on the ground saying, "Who are you?" that was probably going to be them looking at each other and that they were going to have a little meet cute moment in this episode, which they did get, and it was very Little Mermaid, Ariel and Eric on the beach when she saves his life. And overall, like conceptually, I do like that we have the Emond's Field 5, as I'm calling them, teaming up to defeat Ishamael, even if the way the scene was played out and shot I didn't like overall, but I'll get into that more with the dislike. Conceptually, I do like that it took all of them instead of just Rand on his own in order to defeat him, because it speaks to just greater themes overall. And shout out to the surprise guest appearance from Bail Domon. Love me some Bail Domon, as I'm sure you know by now. I have been griping and calling for him to show up for the last couple videos that I've done now, since we've been getting these little hints that he's been in the area down in Falma. It's like one of those shady internet ads, like, find local boatmen in your area. Even bigger surprise guest appearance at the end from the Forsaken Moghedien. Love her already, love the way that she's been cast and the way that she was being portrayed in this scene, and I do think that it makes sense that we see her first. I've been saying that I think one of the next storylines we're gonna get is the Tanshiko plot, which involves her. But in terms of getting into the dislikes, no Ingtar is a dark friend reveal? R.I.P. Ingtar, we barely knew ye. I wish that we had just gotten more of Perrin with the Shinarans overall, but especially with the glimpses that we got with the conversation between Ingtar and Perrin at the beginning of the season, when Ingtar was making reference to the fact that some people might have their reasons for literally betraying their countrymen and turning to the dark. So I was expecting that we were going to get that here, and instead he just Leroy Jenkins himself, and didn't really accomplish a whole lot, especially with some of the things and concepts that were being introduced in this episode and in this scene, with Loyal giving his speech about how they were the heroes of this age and needed to take action, Matt and Perrin being reunited, and Ingtar seeing that, and the power of friendship being the overall message of this episode, but Ingtar seeing that from Perrin and his loyalty to his friends, and then seeing that the dragon is reborn and is there, being the thing that reignites that spark of hope within him. So especially during that scene, I felt like, for one thing, maybe the meetup between Matt and Perrin was a little too convenient, but then again, even in the books, a lot of convenient things can be explained away just from ta'veren. But it did seem like Perrin's objective flipped from must rescue Egwene to must get Rand the Horn a little too quickly for me. It just felt very abrupt. I kind of wish that in that scene where Loyal was giving a speech about how they needed to be the heroes of this age, Ingtar gave that little bit of info drop about what the horn did, that it maybe was Ingtar or someone in this scene here who had conveyed the horn's importance while also revealing he had been a dark friend this whole time, but also revealing that the things that he's seen traveling with Perrin and the stuff that they've been through changed him, turned him back toward the light, and because it gave him hope again, and would give his then sacrifice in that moment even more meaning. I was also a little bit frustrated here that we didn't get an actual scene of Lanfear being the mysterious Karaethon lady who had supposedly showed up to help Loyal and everyone get the horn and escape. They make a brief reference to like a Karaethon woman showed up and helped them, and it wasn't until later when I saw the outfit Lanfear was wearing that I put two and two together and realized that she must have been the mysterious Karaethon noblewoman who helped them, but it was just too quick and like very blink and you'll miss it. So I wish we had actually gotten a scene of that because it was just too fast, and I wanted you to show, not tell in that instance. And like, come on, like not even a Birgitta name drop, really? Matt, anyone, Euler? It would have been a nice callback to the scene in season 1 between Matt and that little girl on the farm when she gave him her little Birgitta dolly and said that Birgitta always protected her when she felt scared. So like Matt knows of Birgitta and knows who she is. We had a call out moment between him and her in season 1, and later on him and her do form a friendship, and so it would have been nice for him to just even like lock eyes with her for a minute, or to be like, hey, I know who you are specifically. Nothing. Birgitta's one of my favorite characters. She's probably tied with Lanfear for number 1. I also was a little disappointed with the whole way that the stabbing, as I've called it, played out. I did like how Matt subverted it, but then ended up in the end not being able to escape Min's viewing. But it just felt a little bit too easy after all the will he, won't he build up we've been getting all season. In my mind, and let me know what you guys think about this, is it worth having Uno die this early if it means that he gets to be a hero of the Horn? But it felt a little anticlimactic in that moment that he was one of the ones who spoke and that Matt acknowledged, because Matt has never met Uno. Matt has no idea who this man is.
I don't know who this man is. I mean, he could be walking down the street. I wouldn't know a thing. Sorry to this man.
And I had to go back. It wasn't until I was watching the episode the second time that I saw his little, like, smoke figure go over the wall really quick to go down and help Perrin, because it did seem like he just went from battling on top of the wall to down there helping Perrin out of nowhere. To go all the way back to the cold open of the episode, especially with the couple little tidbits that they were dropping in episode 7 that not only were Lanfear and the dragon close back in the day, but also Ishamael. I thought hopefully we were gonna get a little bit more of that backstory, but we didn't really get a whole lot more detail about that. It left me wanting. One thing though, little Easter egg that I have been noticing so far and that I did want to point out because I finally figured out what it was. I was wondering, especially with this flashback scene, what are these three-fingered rings? Not only we have seen Ishamael and Lanfear wearing in present day in their scenes, but now Lews Therin and all these other male channelers wearing in this scene. I do believe that these are the Age of Legends version of an Aes Sedai ring. I couldn't remember off the top of my head at first if Lanfear, aka Mierin Aeronile, as she was known back then, was formerly an Aes Sedai, because I couldn't remember if all channelers were automatically Aes Sedai or if you could be a channeler without having that title. But I will leave another link in the description down below because I found a YouTube video the other day that I was listening to where it's just a snippet from the audiobook of Rand going through the pillars in Ruidian and learning the history of the Aiel all the way back to the Age of Legends. But they also took the time to sync it with some cool background music to make it even more epic. So go give that a listen if you're interested. We do get a brief name drop there of an Aiel in the Age of Legends who worked under Mierin Sedai. So that does confirm that Mierin, aka Lanfear, and presumably if he is also wearing the ring, also then Ishamael, were Aes Sedai in that age, and that these were their Aes Sedai rings. Man, like, no Rand versus Turok duel? I was kind of just wondering how it was going to play out, especially as a book reader. One of the things that everyone has been wondering is Rand hasn't gotten a lot of training as a swordsman up until this point. How is he going to legitimately be able to defeat a blade master like Turok? Well, in a true Indiana Jones moment, we get all this build-up. We think we're going into a book-accurate 1v1 sword duel showdown between Rand and Turok, and no, instead he just whips out Saidin and takes care of everyone. I'm wondering in this scene if Rand deliberately meant to leave Turok's voice or leave the servant alive, or if it was just a happy accident. Because if it's the first one, it shows that Rand is able to somewhat control his flows and is able to be somewhat discretionary with how he wields the power, because maybe in his mind he knew that somehow that guy was a servant and he wanted to spare him because in his view that guy didn't have any choice who he worked for? Or was it just another Taveran flip of the coin chance thing and that guy just got lucky? Let me know your thoughts, because yeah, one means that he has control and restraint and is able to show some mercy, and the other one means that he doesn't have any control and it's just luck of the draw. But also, like, no epic fight in the sky between Rand and Ishamael. I am disappointed that we didn't get to see that. It was kind of a big book moment for me that I have been waiting to see my entire life. I can whip out my old sketchbook from like a decade or more ago where I drew my depiction of Rand fighting Balsamon in the sky, but we don't get that, and instead we get what is, in my opinion, kind of an example of some bad fight choreography or just overall scene blocking with the way the face-off between everyone in the Ishamael played out. It just felt like a little bit too much of an Avengers moment, especially with Perrin coming in to block Egwene with the shield last moment, all Captain America style. I get that Egwene is strong, and especially with what she's been through, she's really strong and determined now, but it just felt a little bit unrealistic to me the way she was able to shield Ishamael by herself for so long when, like, he's a Forsaken. We've seen what he's capable of. We know what he's capable of. I don't know why he didn't just go around the shield or teleport behind them like he did 2 seconds ago. I also think that's definitely why Nynaeve was unable to get over her block in this episode and channel, when in previous instances we even saw in season 1, she's able to get angry when people around her and people that she knows are being hurt and is able to channel in those moments. But here, all of a sudden, she's just like too overwhelmed by all this, like too much sensory overload, too scared, and so she's not able to heal Elaine. And I think it was definitely just an excuse for her not to be able to heal Rand or help in this fight, because Nynaeve is even more powerful than Egwene, so she probably could have faced off against Ishamael one-on-one. I think, and let me know what you think, I think, or I at least wonder if, hypothetically, if Nynaeve had been able to channel in this instance, would she have been able to heal the wound in Rand's side fully? Because that is a thing that is supposed to happen. It's not Matt who does it. He gets one poke from Ishii and then another poke later from the dagger, but it's Pat and Fane. And so I wonder if they're condensing both wounds into one here. But either way, Rand does get an unhealable wound that he is forced to bear through the remainder of the series. So yeah, I think if it was Nynaeve channeling in this instance and not Elaine, maybe she would have been able to fully heal him. But it's a thing that needs to happen, so her not being able to channel it here is kind of a thing that needs to happen. R.I.P. to Ishamael. It felt a little bit too easy the way that they were able to take him out and the way that Rand was able to take him out. I mean, I know the man is out here with a literal death wish, so he maybe wasn't putting up too much of a fight. Still, it just felt a little bit too easy. No, I would again lose Theron. We seem to not be getting the flicker scenes that multiple characters experience in the novels, but with Matt and his mushroom tea trip, I think that was in some ways his flicker journey. It was a big part, I think, in the books of his character development. He did see a timeline in which he killed Rand, and so it made him even more determined in reality to not turn on his friends. We did get some little Easter eggs here between these two episodes where we did see a Matt hanging, and we did see Matt getting past life memories back, and we did see Matt wielding a spear of sorts. So I'm wondering if we are or aren't going to get the doorway to Finland, or if that was just him getting the flicker to build that character development, because we do see here by the end he is a Matt who is able to be tested and pass the test when he didn't before with the tea, and a Matt who is even more determined not to abandon his friends and not to turn on them. I was kind of hoping that we were going to get a moment where we would see Egwene link with Nynaeve and Elaine to help defeat Ishamael, which would contrast the Damane's forced linking and show that they, and even more emphasize this message that they're going for here of them being able to overcome Ishamael with the power of friendship. But before I get into my overall thoughts, I just have to also say R.I.P. to Hopper. I knew it was coming as a book reader, and so I'm glad that we got as much Hopper as we did, and that Hopper stuck around for as long as he did compared to the books. But oh man, guys, like, it was just brutal. Did you really have to go that hard, show the close-up of the sad dog and get me in my feels like that? I was in literal tears, crying on the couch. You didn't have to do that to us. Petition to also make Hopper a hero of the Horn. I mean, just kidding. I know Hopper will come back, so never you fear. Hopper does come back and still has an important role to play in Perrin's growth and journey. I think if Uno gets to come back and be a hero of the Horn, Hopper should get to come back and be a hero of the Horn. Overall, in this episode and all season, I did like that we see Lanfear has her own agenda, which also brings me back briefly to the amount of Bael'Damon that we got in this season. I think they could have done more with Bael'Damon, because it was like, why even have him with what you did do with him? It does show that Lanfear has her own agenda. She was ready to just throw all the other Forsaken seals into the ocean and and leave them all behind and keep Rand all to herself. Ishamael wants Rand to join forces with him to destroy the world, whereas Lanfear wants Rand to join forces with her and rule the world. She's very, it's us against the world. I also thought it was interesting that we saw Haddon Fane, of all people, make a reference in a conversation here that the Great Lord gave Lanfear eternal life, which leaves me wondering, what about the other Forsaken? So that would explain why she was able to be brought back in her current form, or her current body. And so now I'm wondering, are we going to get body swapping after all? Because we didn't see Ishamael immediately be resurrected. He just vanished away into dust. But then again, he's a nihilist. He doesn't want to exist anymore. That was his greatest wish. So yeah, he would want to just be able to die, go off into nothing. Whereas yeah, Lanfear apparently was granted specifically the gift of eternal life. So I'm not sure if that applies to any of the other Forsaken or not. It does still leave the whole body swapping problem open-ended. Are we going to see Ishamael come back and this was all a trick? And we will see him come back as Moradin, but still played by Ferris? Or is this an indication that we will maybe see Moradin come back later, played by a different actor? Rand here, I just wanted to take a moment to speak to his overall journey in the books to maybe get some hints at where he'll be going in the show. Rand ends up making the mistake that I realized I also ended up making in my early 20s, where I thought that emotional stability equals not having or showing any emotions, good or bad, but like especially bad, but it ends up being even good. And he thinks that saving the world means that he also has to fix it and solve all its problems. He knows he's destined to break the world with his coming, but he's determined to somehow leave it better than he found it. When really, he needs to realize that saving the world just means preserving it from the Dark One so that people can have free will to make their own choices and save it themselves. Just like as we see with Egwene in these episodes. I love that she ended up freeing herself and not needing rescuing, and I think it is just an example to show Rand that not everyone needs rescuing. You need to let them save themselves. And it just speaks to this overall theme throughout the novels and the shows of choice and free will versus fate and destiny. But speaking of fate and destiny, it's interesting that Moraine ends up being the one behind almost a self-fulfilling prophecy with Rand and the Dragon Reborn. It ends up being her and Lanfear who put the flaming dragon in the sky to proclaim Rand in front of everyone as the dragon. So if she hadn't been there to do that, would that have still left it open for someone else to be the dragon if Rand fails? But now that the prophecy has been fulfilled, thanks in part to her, he is the dragon. And I think that even further speaks to what I said in my last video of Moraine and Rand's destinies just being forever intertwined. I did like how here in these episodes, Matt went from being tested and found wanting to tested and coming out stronger willed and able to get ahead and be more determined to stick by his friends. At first I was worried it was going to be a little bit too repetitive, like him being tested with a T and then him being tested with a dagger, but yeah, I love how he was able to kind of subvert that. And Egwene was slaying. I have always been an Egwene stan from my book reading days. In my humble opinion, Egwene is just as important to the plot as Rand. I am glad that the show made a point of making her a Ta'veren like the boys, because she wasn't in the books, but a lot of the plot ends up focusing on Egwene and her storyline. As far as a few thoughts about season 2 overall and the finale overall, I'm gonna do a whole another video where I give a more in-depth recap review of season 2 as a whole and rank the episodes from like my most favorite to least like I did for season 1, and I'll go even more into season 3 predictions in that. To just kind of wrap this up, overall I will say that the pacing of this season is much better than season 1 and the season finale is much better than season 1, but yeah, it just didn't meet a lot of my expectations as a book book reader. And that's not necessarily to say that it was a bad finale or a bad episode. It did still have a lot of really great moments. It's just that, yeah, I will fully admit that I had some expectations of things that I was hoping or wanting to see going into this as a book reader, and it subverted a lot of those expectations. Some of them worked for me. I'm a little shocked / disappointed about the way they handled the Turok thing, but I will admit it is a convenient way to skirt around the whole is Rand or isn't Rand capable of beating him in a sword fight question. And while I like the overall concept and message behind changing the ending from Rand versus Ishamael one-on-one to defeating him with the power of friendship and all of his friends literally showing up for him, mostly Egwene just holding down the fort over here, it just shows Rand that Ishamael was wrong and that his friends aren't going to turn on him and aren't going to abandon him. Egwene being able to shield him and him not really being able to or trying to do anything about it just felt a little unrealistic to me. And like, seriously, how the fuck was Elaine supposed to get all up those stairs to the top of that tower on her bum leg like that? I want them to give the costume designers for this show all of the awards. The costumes for this season were on point. They were just giving me life. I loved all of the costumes this season. It was definitely a step up, just like everything I think was a step up from season 1. But yeah, overall, I could have used more of Perrin and the Shinarans and their hunt for the horn so that we could get more of Ingtar, and yeah, especially really missing that reveal that Ingtar is a dark friend. Moraine being the one making the whole Fallen thing a self-fulfilling prophecy was a nice change for me and one that worked for me. Wondering now if we are going to get Aelfin Eilfin, if we are going to get body swapping, and if we are going to get any of the girls returning to the tower at this point. I'll go into that a little bit more in the next video where I do season 3 predictions, because in my last video I was wondering if they were going to go back to the tower at all. I'm realizing now that some of them are going to have to go back. I don't know if Egwene will, because she's really been the one doing the most this season, and if you ask me, the one who has endured the most compared to any of the other Emmonsfielders so far, aside from maybe what Nynaeve had to go through with the doorway to her Angreal. Egwene at this point has been kidnapped and tortured by the White Cloaks and the Shan-Chan. I don't know if she's going to put up with White Tower's novice training shenanigans anymore at this point, and it would leave her free to go to the Aiel with Rand and get her Dreamwalker training from the Wise One. But someone's going to have to go back to the tower to take the horn there for storage and safekeeping until the last battle, and also to take the dagger back there. And so I'm wondering if Matt will go with them at first to do that, because we also still need some of these characters to meet Elaine's brothers, Gowan and Galad, and that happens at the White Tower. So some of them might go back. I stan Moghedien already, and it leaves me wondering if Lanfear will now kind of have to take a back seat compared to this season and be working even more behind the scenes and in Teleron Riyadh while we focus on Moghedien and some of the other Forsaken. I do know that now the showrunners have revealed that much of season 2 had to be rewritten in order to write around the whole original Matt after leaving at the end of season 1, which did pull Matt out of the storyline when he wasn't supposed to be. I do think that that's where some of the cracks in the storytelling and the writing were showing, especially in the last episode with having to pull all of those threads back together and get everyone back where they needed to be for the books. So I'm just hoping that this means that season 3 is going to be even more book accurate. I know it's primarily going to be focusing on book 4, which is The Shadow Rising. But overall, yeah, I liked the pacing. It was much better and an improvement from season 1. And I stand by my assumption that I said going into the season that I think if they are able to do all the seasons that they want and have planned, and we're able to get everything that they want to bring to us, and they're able to keep up this pacing and this momentum and keep building on it and improving on it, that we will be able to look back on the Wheel of Time as one of those shows where we can say if you can just get past season 1, it's really good. And I'm just gonna come out and say it, it's still a better show than Rings of Power. So let me know what you thought about the finale down below. What were your likes and dislikes? What hit for you and didn't as a book reader versus as a non-book reader? I'm really curious to see what non-book readers thought of how everything played out and what worked and didn't work for them just from a storytelling point of view. Because I do fully admit that a lot of what disappointed and fell short for me was in part due to expectations that I had as a book reader. Stay tuned, look forward to my next video where I'll give my overall review and recap of the season as a whole and some more season 3 predictions. And until next time, stay classy!